I think most of us, when we think of intimacy, we think of sexual intimacy. That's like the forefront.
Right.
And
I was really good at that.
Yeah, and I expressed that. I was like, you know how to have sex, but you're not giving me full access to your heart and to your soul. And so we can't reach the heights that we really want to, or the depths that we really desire to experience to have even better sex, because there's a part of you that I don't have access to.
For me, intimacy means being completely authentic and being able to really share what's real, what's authentic, what's happening right now, and finding the words and ways to express that. For example, him witnessing a part of me that's actually really contracted in this moment, really scared or really confused.
Welcome to Modern Enlightenment, a sanctuary for your soul, where we'll go on a path of personal and spiritual development. I'm Austin Mao.
And I'm Johann. We are your companions on this journey of self-discovery and spiritual connection.
Join us as we delve into the fusion of modern psychotherapy, neuroscience, psychospirituality, and shamanic plant sacrament ceremonies, exploring the transformative potential of psychedelics for the mind, body, and spirit.
Our mission is to guide you to a place of profound awareness where emotions can be felt.
Together, let's illuminate the way to a brighter, more enlightened existence.
Modern Enlightenment, where your journey to inner peace begins.
So I'm so excited to have this Modern Enlightenment episode welcoming Rachel Pringle Erb and Johann Erb, the founders of Co-Devotional Relationships and Pyramid Breathwork.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I've met you two through the Mind Valley community. And it just turned out that we had a lot of mutual connections and I think a lot of playfulness that came from that through our Burning Man circles and whatnot. And so just super excited to sit with you here in this space.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
Such
honored.
An honor and a
Yeah.
joy. Really, really been loving connecting with you as well.
Offline, we were just chatting about authenticity. And, you know, when I think about authenticity, it isn't like a 1 or a 0. It's not like you're inauthentic or you're authentic. I think there is a gradient of how can we be more and more authentic. And as I've been walking this own path in me, what I've noticed is that I become more authentic when I become more self-aware, right? And I'm able to hold attention on the parts of myself that are seeking, that are clinging, that are triggered, etc., and showing up with vulnerability, with revealing something that I would otherwise, a past version of myself, would have been afraid about. And so I'm curious, you know, sitting with this beautiful couple, like what has been your path towards authenticity and how has your relationship supported that, including with the challenges and the suck?
I love what you said. First of all, one of my favorite things is revealing oneself. I think that's such a power move to continually reveal ourselves to ourselves and then to our surroundings. And our relationship has absolutely been the pinnacle of that. And I feel like so many of us are carrying around a mask from childhood to get love, to feel like we belong, to get love and connection or whatever that may be. And then as we grow older into our adulthood, we realize that we're carrying around this weight of this mask. And so the act of revealing oneself is this liberation, this freedom to just being who we are moment to moment versus an idea of who we are.
Yeah, and I would say that Rachel and I both didn't come in like this. You know, I was like a textbook avoidant. She is a textbook people pleaser.
Yeah.
And it was definitely a pretty messy combo there for some years.
Yeah.
And authenticity has been something that we really have worked on and created practices around. And certainly, I think for the both of us, it was very edgy, very scary. Like intimacy for me was the scariest thing on the planet. And it was the longest one I really had to almost like wait to be ready for in order to truly be authentic. And like you said, vulnerable. It takes such courage.
Yeah.
There's something that my mind's going to here. I heard you say that intimacy was really challenging for you.
Yeah.
And yet, for those that are just listening audio only, you know, you were named a very sexy man in Estonia. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Rachel, you are an incredibly beautiful woman. And I'm curious, like, can you define what intimacy means for you in this context and how that definition may have changed over time?
For me, intimacy means being completely authentic and being able to really share what's real, what's authentic, what's happening right now, And finding the words and ways to express that. For example, him witnessing a part of me that's actually really contracted in this moment, really scared or really confused. I used to always feel like I needed to be in the knowing. You don't need to be certain. And it was false. It wasn't real. And so therefore, I just put out this sort of idea of who I am versus really letting people in and to see me. And it took so much energy and like planning and time and like, calculation. I didn't trust anybody to hold me, like really hold me. And therefore never experienced true intimacy until this lovely lady right here who was able to get through and
Who demanded it?
literally was going to walk away unless I gave it to her. And I remember when she was like, you need to give me your heart, your vulnerable heart, or I'm going to walk away. And I was like, what does that mean? What are you talking about? I didn't even know what that was. That's how blocked I was. And then through the processes and the learnings and the practices, have now gotten to it. And now I'm like, how could I live without this? Like, this is the best, most profound, most beautiful feeling in the whole world, like a blessing that doesn't end. It's just a continual state of like peak experience, not intimacy.
I think most of us, when we think of intimacy, we think of sexual intimacy. That's like the forefront.
Right.
And
I was really good at that.
Yeah, he was, and I expressed that. I was like, you know how to have sex, but you're not giving me full access to your heart and to your soul. And so we can't reach the heights that we really want to, or the depths that we really desire to experience to have even better sex, because there's a part of you that I don't have access to. And, and when we first got together, I didn't have that in myself. Like I remember when we were first making love, like I could hardly even look at him in the eyes because I didn't know how to transfer my intimacy just on a normal day-to-day through sex, because that was a whole other act. So there's so many different versions of intimacy. But
You're also looking at the sexiest man in Estonia, so it's
very challenging, yeah.
to take it all in.
It was intimidating. But I think it's, like you said, moment to moment revealing what is the truest thing that's there, which is oftentimes something that's scary or fearful. And we're so programmed in our society to not speak to that, when actually speaking to that builds such strength in you, because you're no longer afraid of that part of you. You use it as an ally, and it becomes a source of great energy, actually.
For men, I mean, I'm sure you can relate. Most men out there can. We're taught from a very young age that vulnerability equals weakness. Certainly here in this part of the world, but I would suggest that every part of the world. That's the program, the current program. And when we switch that program, when you realize it's a faulty, misleading, disempowering program, to, wow, actually vulnerability equals courage, strength, power. Man, everything shifts and changes. And no longer do you need to pretend and hide and play this part. Or rather, your true strength and power can come online.
Earlier, I heard you say that there was a moment where Rachel was literally going to leave you if you didn't give her your heart, and you didn't know what that even meant for you. And that strikes me as like a very specific moment where you were led into self-inquiry by your partner, right? And I'm curious for you, Rachel, like, was there a moment for you where earlier you said that you also didn't really know what it meant to be intimate? So how does one know that they're missing authenticity? How does one know that they're missing intimacy? And how does one know how to even ask for it or to call forth that from yourself? Like, how did you discover that?
I love this question. It's so beautiful. I think when you are recognizing that you're operating from a premeditated place, right? So oftentimes you'll hear people will leave a party and they'll sort of track back everything, every conversation, what they did. They're calculating, how do I perceived? How am I showing up? And so there's like a fear of a part of us, like a shadowed part of us. When you ask me that question, what I recognize in that moment is when Johann invited me into that, there was a whole aspect of me that was totally in the dark, that was totally shadowed. So when you're moving through our day, recognizing that we're playing a role and we can feel that there's something we don't have access to. And then I believe the massive importance of having people in your community, in your surroundings that you trust enough to ask for reflection. We're both such advocates of having people around that we trust. And I ask, my closest people, my husband, of course, for their perspective all the time. I'm like, give me your perspective on what did you notice in me or this scenario? Or like, can you show me something that I'm not seeing? And that was really like in the beginning of our relationship, something that was always there of like curiosity of help me see what I'm not seeing. And out of excitement versus out of dread, I think it originally comes from like, ooh, what am I going to see? And I think we both have found continuously the immense power in our darkness or our shadow. That's been time and time again for me, my greatest teacher, my greatest source of strength. And just having the right people who can mirror that back to you so that it becomes really exciting versus terrifying.
And I would add to that, I would say that one of the biggest things in that moment, actually, in my life, I was really confused. I had fallen in love with another woman. Rachel had fallen in love with another couple. And I turned to mushroom medicine, psilocybin, for reflection. And so I asked Rachel for space, and which she gave me to do a solo ceremony at home. And so the mushrooms showed me my blind spots, and it was very revealing. I, first of all, was like purging out, like just lineage stuff came up. And then they then showed me my life. First of all, they showed me in all the ways I was taking Rachel for granted. And I was only focusing on like little parts that could be different, total focus on what's not perfect and taking for granted everything that was so amazing and beautiful. And wow, they showed me that. And then they showed me what my life would look like without Rachel in it. And I literally cried for 3 hours, like a baby. And I was just like, oh my God, what an imbecile. How blinded I've been. And it was such a powerful moment for me. And then they also told me, you got to come clean, because I had lied about this one time I cheated on her. I had not been fully forthcoming with all of the things that I was withholding. And the medicine was like, you got to say it all. And then the next day when I did, there's still a part of me that was like, I can't. It's just too much. Like, she'll just leave or whatever. And the medicine was like, no, you got to do it. And that was the breakthrough moment for us of her holding space for me like a total queen while we're both crying, while all this painful stuff is coming forth. And that's when really I would say the transformation truly began, true intimacy.
Wow, that feels like such an incredibly powerful moment of not just self-realization, but the courage to share that with Rachel afterwards.
Yeah.
Because I imagine in that moment, you were risking the relationship. I mean, the relationship was already at risk, and then you were making a final step of risk, right? I tuned into the vocabulary you're using, and you said that the mushrooms showed you this. And first, I just want to share my belief system that I have, that the mushrooms are a conduit for an inner part of ourselves to show ourselves.
Yeah.
Ourself. I don't know if the audience got that, but
yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
I think they did.
And I'm curious how that lands, like that there was something, an inner voice in you that maybe was muted to you in your conscious waking life. And then through the power of plant medicine, through the opening of your mind and your heart and your spirit, that you were able to see something that was hitherto unseen. And then integrating that like with courage is what led to such an extraordinary transformation. Does that land for you?
Yeah, 1,000%. I couldn't agree more. We get so wrapped up in our own belief systems that are all made up. That's why they're called belief systems, right? Just beliefs. And what it ultimately always boils down to is like, are you being authentic? Are you being real? And when we're not, and that 2 years that I was holding this secret that I slept with somebody else, I woke up with it. I went to bed with it. I ate with it. I took a shit with it. I made love with it. I brushed my teeth with it. Like,
and it wasn't like I didn't know energetically. I knew as well.
Yeah, I just didn't have the courage.
Yeah.
And then the moment that you speak of, what that I just spoke to as well, was like, I don't want to live like this anymore. I don't want to come like 99.9% clean and then have that 0.1% always living in there. And I was like, I'd rather set her free and set myself free, or really like be able to express everything and then grow closer through this experience than continue the same pattern. And it's a death process. It was totally, absolutely a death process where a part of my identity was fighting for its life. And then when I spoke those words and expressed, it died. And another version of me was then being birthed. And we've gone through that process many times.
And that was what I wanted. To me, that was the intimacy that I was really seeking, because I'm such an energetic being. I believe that we all are, really. It's just our willingness to tap into that or not. I knew something was in the space, and that was what I was wanting, is like, tell me the thing, then, and let's work with it together. I think that's the true intimacy of any sort of relationship, is like, we can sense that when there's something in the way of our connection. And so once he finally expressed, it was like, okay, great. Now, not only am I a part of me that I have witnessed is also validated, right? Because I could sense something was in the space. Now the energy is clean, and now we can build together. And so when that happened, and it led us down this incredible journey for both of us of all these profoundly deep, really intimate conversations of childhood and woundings, and his relationship with the feminine, and my relationship with, the masculine, all of these things. And that was what I'd always been craving. I was like, oh, this is where the juice is, because I can really feel your heart. And I think even, for all relationships, like, we want to know the thing that's most scary, because then we're like real allies. We can really support each other. But oftentimes that's the thing that we hold. We're like, oh, this is too much, or they can't handle it. Or if I remember him saying to me, like, I know that there's a part of you you're not giving me access to. And he was like, yeah, I know. And the story that I think part of you had made up is like, if I give you access to this, then you have something on me that you can like use against me. And I think a lot of us are operating from that, not realizing that's actually keeping us separate.
Totally.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this emotional psychologist, the first one that made the colorful emotional wheel, Plutchik. And it has the primary emotions of like happiness and sadness, surprise, anger, then the secondary and tertiary emotions. And he says that in that chart, love is equal to safety plus joy. Like, you can only feel love so long as you feel safe to feel and happy, right? And, as I'm hearing you two share, Rachel, about your experience of having an intuitive sense that there is something off, right? And Johann naming that you had an avoidant pattern, and that it took so much to share and risk the relationship that it didn't feel safe that there was a secret there somewhere. There was an energy there somewhere. And maybe you didn't feel safe to share it because she would leave, right? And it just, what I'm really struck by is this paradox that the way that we think we need to do something to get what we think we want usually is preventing us from actually getting it.
Yeah.
Holding on to the secret because we're like, oh man, if I share this thing, I'm going to lose this relationship.
Yeah.
It's actually what was leading to the loss of the relationship.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of my own instance. Like, I was at a transformational retreat with one of my partners after a major conflict where we had actually agreed to separate like the week before. And I remember going through an exercise where I had a felt sense in my body of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I was pounding my fist on the floor saying, I don't know. And I realized I had never said that in my life to my partner. I had built all this ego, all this identity around knowing how to do everything.
Yeah.
Being a teacher and being a facilitator and being a CEO, etc. And being able to actually say, I don't know, is what our relationship and the space needed from me. That was a vulnerable thing.
So powerful.
So this topic of authenticity is so interesting because, we start in this place of not being able to see like clearly, consciously what we're missing, where we're being inauthentic. We can only feel it. And then to your point, Rachel, it seems like other people can feel it more than you can.
Yeah.
Simply because they're on the outside looking in, right? I heard from a dear friend, like, when you're feeling suffering, the right move is to zoom in or to zoom out. Like, look deeply into yourself or zoom out and look at, why is this happening for me? But when you're in it and not zoomed in or out, you're just persisting in it.
One of the things that has been with us from the very first day of our meeting has been daily practice. And now for the last 8 or so years, it's been pyramid breath. But even if it's not pyramid breath, and I'll talk about the power of that in a moment, but having a practice that allows you to either to zoom out or really to zoom in, like you just said, is so important. And for us, because we do pyramid breath every day and we connect to that part of ourselves that is divine, that is forever, that is love, that is safety. It is, I cannot stress enough when we tell all our clients this, is like, have a daily practice. It doesn't mean you need to practice for, an hour a day. You can do 5 minutes or 7 minutes.
It's just the consistency.
We have clients that go and do medicine retreats and we work with a lot of couples. And, they're like going at it. And then they go to a medicine retreat and they come back, oh my God, I get it. Like, yes, like, oh my, it's all about love. And this is my person. And then a week goes by and they're like, back at it.
Totally, yeah.
I got to go to another medicine retreat. I'm like, it's yes. And it's not sustainable. Like if you're only going to the medicine retreat to get that remembering, but you're not bringing it back home with you in a sustainable way, it's just unsustainable.
Yeah.
And you're not breaking the pattern that happens here. And so for us, doing a daily practice is that moment, even through our toughest
that was the
moment,
constant in
that
our
really
relationship.
Helped us not to walk away from each other.
Yeah. We would come together, and this was it was a long period of time that we were going through this beautiful, like massive, consistent death and rebirth process of everything we're talking about. That was the constant thing of being able to come together and have this practice and express all of, I don't know, into the space, because that's what it was. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what this is. And both of us had this consistent message in our practice, which was trust and it will be revealed, like keep going. And so if we didn't have that, who knows what would have happened. But to be I love how you express that, because I think it's so powerful to be in like, what the fuck am I doing? What is going on? I don't know anything right now, but to keep on coming back to that sacred space where you can just be in that unraveling was absolute game changer.
Yeah.
Like 100%.
I love the comment on the daily practice, and something that I'm returning to is what you just said, Rachel, trust and it will all be revealed. Something I wanted to touch on right in the beginning was when I introduced you, you are leading something called relational co-devotion. And I'm very curious about this word, the prefix co, right? Tell me about that, like in the context of trust and it will be revealed. What's the co-devotion about?
Well, I think that both Johann and I are very, like, devotion is my everything. And when we landed on co-devotion, it's like we're co-creating this devotional energy. It is because oftentimes devotion is like one and one, right? And it's beautiful, that act, but co-devotion, especially in relationship, means really taking another person into account and a co-creative experience to build something even better than you can on your own. And it takes a certain level of presence, of patience, and of persistence to get beyond what we think as an individual and get into this universal energy that is beyond our singular mind, right? And that it's been a massive opening for us, because I think we as humans get really caught up in that, what I want, what I desire. And I believe in desire deeply. It's one of my greatest teachers. But beyond what the mind is and into this heart coherence, this soul expression, and having the patience to let it reveal itself before like grasping and running with it. So many of us do that, which is incredible. But the slowing down to do it in a co-creation takes on a different texture that allows for a lot more to be revealed from our experience.
Yeah, and I would add to that, we actually are beginning to call it the art of co-devotion, co-devotional loving. And it's amazing when you learn the building blocks, right? It's having a daily practice, and not just a breath practice, a meditation practice. This is a gratitude practice. How do you create words as spells? How do you create with your words?
Yeah.
And again, not just create, how do you co-create, right? And then it becomes this dance of co-creation where we're excited to do it every day. We would do it on the way here. Like we'll do it in a cab. We'll do it on the way to the airport. We do it when we do our walks. We do it on the way to the gym. It's always
constant,
infused. So we don't even need to make extra time for it. We can do it while we're brushing our teeth or making breakfast. And then when you add in these practices where you're constantly co-devotionally weaving your reality, and then you're using words and spells that are powerful and empowering in a win formula where, we benefit, you benefit, the world benefits. The divine, or however you want to call divine, universe, greater intelligence, floods you in this way. And our prayer has been like, can the divine trust us as a container to fully flow through us in a way that serves not just our love, but love, period.
Love itself.
Love itself. And it's so amazing when we make this life into an art form, or this way of relating into an art form, And when I say art form, I don't mean like, it needs to look this way.
What's interesting is what coming to me is like, there's a very big difference between when you are painting on your own, right? It's just you and this canvas and your paint, and it's your process. But when you are painting together, there is a totally new energy that's in space, which means patience. And then there's a part of you that's going to come forward, like in all of us, that's like, oh, don't do it like that. And that's where the trust piece comes in, to get beyond just the next step, but to hold the it's not just the next step. We're building a masterpiece over time, right? It's not looking to just tomorrow. It's this ever evolving, ever expanding evolution of love. And it might not look like anything a month from now, but in 7 years from now, it's taken on this whole thing. And it takes really like us setting back from ourselves and trusting in something bigger. And it continues to be miraculous experience.
Our mantra is life gets better and better forever and ever, in a win formula. And to what Rachel has said about being the architect, being the sculptor, being the painter, realizing that it's never finished.
Yes.
Right? And you don't want it to be finished, because nothing in the universe ever is. It's always being molded, changed, shaped. And the dance is the masterpiece, versus like, oh, the painting's done now. The sculpture it's complete now. And when we embrace that as a life philosophy, that we're always growing, we're never in the knowing, we're always in the discovery and being like, wow, it gets to be even better than this.
Like, what's going to happen now?
And then being like, excited about it, which we live giddy with excitement, like, what's happening next, Whereas I think a lot of folks really live in fear of what's next. And that's such a shift of mindset and beingness.
Yeah.
I really want to zoom into that. Like, first of all, just for those that are listening on audio, when Rachel and Johann just did, they were like moving their arms like little kids and grinning, like, and it just felt like we were on a playground all of a sudden, or at Burning Man all of a sudden. Yeah. And there were so many questions that popped up for me earlier. Ben in Azariah B. Kerr says devotion is equal to commitment plus love. Yeah. Right. And I was like, oh, what are you devoted to? When you mentioned routine, or what I interpret as routine and practice, I was like, I'm hearing spiritual practice.
Yeah.
And, there are different kinds of practices.
Yeah.
Right. But what I really want to zoom into now is this, what I heard you just say, like transforming from fear to giddiness, like a childlike excitement and wonder of what is possible.
Yeah.
How do you do that? Like, what are the practices? Like, let's zoom into that.
I think the first thing that comes to mind is we have found so much magic in simplicity. I would say that we live an incredibly magical life, and we're so grateful and so blessed in so many ways. But, the majority of our life is spent really simply. And it is, our gratitude, our morning practice, where pyramid breath is not rigid. It is such a playful, very childlike, very tantric, wild practice that it's different every single day. And so first thing, we get to be in this playful mode and make sounds and move our body and just be, and that sets the tone, right? And the rest of our days, we're not doing anything grand, because I think both of us are not, we've lost focus on this like goal of what we think success means, but really success is how full are we living in the moment, and how full are we experiencing that giddiness of the moment. And the way that we appreciate and talk to each other is such a huge thing. Like, we are in reverence and love for each other on a constant and consistent basis. And I think the energy too that I'm recognizing in the way that you offered it is, it really acknowledges our like self. When you're giving a really authentic compliment to someone, what you see in them is their inner child coming alive. They feel, it makes me emotional. It's like they feel seen and received. And it's like, oh, you love me for me, right? Like, and we're stoking that flame constantly. And it's been that way for years and years and years. And taking that on walks where we do our gratitude, where we spend, 20 minutes, half an hour each going on and on about what we're grateful for, what we're loving, our future and building. And it becomes this two kids playing and building with our imagination. And, those are just a few little pieces, but that's like the immediacy at which we greet the moment, because it's the most fun. And so therefore we want to come back to it, because it is fills us up with that bubbly energy that feels like limitless and infinite.
Yeah, I'd love to share just a quick practice with the audience here
Please.
that was a recent download of mine, which is really simple and really profound. And you could do it first thing in the morning. You could do it on your way to work. You could do it whenever, really. And it goes like this. And if it's first thing in the morning, what I would invite you to do is before you even open your eyes, you just place your hands on your body and you do this. If you're going on a walk, really feel the feelings in the body. That's what's most important, is that we're marrying our brain with the body. We're marrying the psychology with the physiology. And so if we just say the words without the feeling, nothing's going to happen, right? So it goes like this. I'm really loving the feeling of being so healthy. I'm really loving the feeling of being so wealthy. I'm really loving the feeling of having the best day today. I'm really loving the knowing that everything is happening for me. I'm really loving, and you could just go on and on. But when we say to our body, touching our body, I'm really loving the feeling of, and it's something empowering and positive, the body is like, awesome, that is real, that is true, that is what is. And from that moment arises this natural and excitement and empowerment that feeds you. So, most people in the morning, first thing they pop their eyes open, they grab their phone, they're either looking at politics or missed emails, or they're thinking about their kid or job or something. So you're automatically in fear. And this way, like, you really get to set your day. And then you sprinkle these practices throughout the day. What can you be grateful for, right? And then speaking to it in the moment, because what we appreciate appreciates. Whatever we focus on grows and expands. And if we focus on all the things that are wrong with the world, that's all we see. And so one of the keys and secrets, and we say this all the time, and it's out there, this isn't news to anybody, but it is scientifically proven that we create our own version of reality, moment to moment. And so why not become the creator of your reality? Why not make it super fun and playful? Because that's all there is all the time. And then now, and now, and now, and now.
And these practices, like, that's what we find is a spiritual practice can feel overwhelming to people. It can feel maybe too serious or rigid, or it can feel like a job. Exactly.
Like a
or
chore.
you check off your to-do list. And when I think of a spiritual practice, I think of a practice that gets to know the spirit that is residing within me. And when I think of that, it's almost immediate. That feels playful, and it feels like
your inner child.
Exactly. And it's so when all of our practices are playful and fun. So it's like never a chore to get to them. It's like, oh yeah, let's do this thing. And even if, there's a part of me that can sometimes be resistant to particular practices and he'll lead, or vice versa, there is that knowing inside of me that this will help me shift my state into a state of playfulness. And then through that, again, we're coming back to this, every day is this miracle. So we're no longer living for this goal or this peak experience, but our life is a peak experience. And so these things are just bonuses.
I love what both of you've shared. And Johann, when I was hearing your mantras that you were speaking, some might call those affirmations, right? But what I heard that was subtly, and I think very importantly, different, it wasn't like, if I'm sad in this moment, like, oh, I love that I'm feeling happy, which is a denial of actually what I'm actually feeling in that moment. I'm bypassing that feeling. It was more like, I love that I'm able to feel, right?
Yeah.
Which is an acknowledgement of something that is really true and we can feel grateful for. And that speaks to a value of mind, to always acknowledge and be with what is. And in that beingness is what creates an available spiritual experience, because we're able to feel ourselves more. And then when we feel ourselves more and more deeply, we get to feel our inner child more. But it's what the thread that I'm seeing is from the very beginning. I'm reading a book by Tony Robbins right now called Awaken the Giant Within. And he talks about retraining your mind such that challenges are then associated with pleasure.
Yes.
And therefore you look forward to challenges because you're like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to grow.
Yes.
Right? And I'm like, man, I stubbed my toe on this table and it's so much pain right now, but why is this happening for me?
Yeah.
And I can say a mantra that's like, I love that the universe is working for me.
Yes.
That there's something benign about these challenges, right?
Pronoia.
Pronoia, what's that?
It's the opposite of paranoia, which means the universe is conspiring for me.
That is awesome. That is now in my vocabulary.
With me.
Yeah, exactly. For me, with me, through me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is, my interpretation is that is at the heart of your practices. that you're very consciously and intentionally entering into a zoom out to look at like, oh, these are the things I can be grateful for.
Yeah.
You know, earlier, Rachel, you shared that your lives are very simple. And I think that practice actually speaks to the simplicity in which you live your life, because it's a really simple practice to just walk with your partner and be like, I'm really grateful for these things.
Yeah.
And to speak the spells to allow your body to really recognize it and be in that together.
And it's so often, and we've incorporated this into our spells as well as, you know, really living the feeling that we're sitting on a couch with an amazing person and doing a podcast, or that we're on a stage and we're, you know, sharing our magic with this audience, that it lands in this beautiful way when everybody feels
to dream together.
You know, we literally dream our reality into being. And then in those moments, like right now, we acknowledge each other and be like, hey, we just spoke this into being. Remember?
Look at what we did.
You guys aren't even wearing the same color clothes.
So really, and I say this because it does come with the awareness of the immense power that all of us hold, and that a lot of us haven't tapped into. And, you know, Tony's amazing about this as well. So much value from there. And it's so incredible when we do tap into that and begin to live from that place and realize it's not just an idea, and it's a lived reality. And I
so agree with that, of like the challenges. That's one of, I think, our pillars of our relationship. Because of everything we've gone through, we have really learned that these painful moments, these challenging moments, are our greatest teachers and our biggest opportunities. And when you start to associate them differently, they do become pleasurable, and they do become, and that's something that we actively do. You know, we'll take moments if we're in a moment of, you know, disconnection or a trigger, and one of us, you know, often Johann is very good at this. He'll zoom out and be like, I'm so grateful that we're doing this together and we're in this challenging moment, and there's no one else I'd rather do this with. And over the years that it just has instilled this. And so, and I remember having a conversation with my friend just recently, and she was like, what's going on with you? And I was telling her, and I was like, you know, this last year, or let's say 9 months, has been a really deep cathartic. I've been doing some really deep healing. And from one view, it could be, you could see it as negative or bad or scary or fearful or whatever it is. And the way that I have chosen to view it has made it into this beautiful experience where I'm like, wow, I'm learning so much. I'm healing so much. I'm growing so much. And I'm so grateful that I have the ability to feel this deeply, to be held this safely, and to bring it back to exactly like you said. I love that, of like, wow, I have the ability to feel this deeply, to feel this level of pain or grief or sadness or whatever it is, and to let that be actually a deeper form of connection for all that is, because everyone is going through these experiences. And so when we touch them deeply in us, we're able to touch it deeply in others and have, you know, that's when we really start to encounter compassion, which is, again, compassion, gratitude, freaking amazing experience and energy. Yeah.
I have this book on my bookshelf that I recently finished called How We Fight by Johann. And he says that the definition of compassion that I most love by him is, compassion is the want for others not to suffer. And I'm curious, how do you guys fight?
One of my favorite quotes is learning how to fight with love and kindness. It's a huge, I think the biggest misconception is a great relationship, you don't fight or you never get triggered, which is like the farthest thing from the truth.
Right.
One of the biggest or false concepts, I think, or false beliefs out in the world is to what Rachel just spoke to. We get it from movies a lot, you know, that you meet your partner in person, you ride off to the sunset and just rainbows, and then the movie ends. And we just assume that's how it's going to go, happily ever after. And that's just not true, nor do you want it to be true, because it will get so boring so fast.
Yes.
You know, if we would go back to the movie The Matrix, we would just reject the Matrix. We're like, it's not real. Like, we need contraction. We need obstacles, because without them, we don't grow. And so if we implement that to a relationship and know that these contractions are happening for us, and again, you cannot have expansion without contraction. And usually in the moment of the peak expansion, every now and then we're like, oh, there's probably a contraction coming fairly soon, because you're at that moment like nothing could go wrong, literally just gelling right now. And the next moment, like when you expect it and you welcome it and you get excited about it,
changes.
Then you can meet it with a completely different perspective from the get-go. So you're like, why did you mess up our perfect, streak of 2 weeks of just bliss right now. Like, ooh, wow, here we go. Like, I wonder what the learning in this is. Like, clearly this is happening for us. And then one of the things that Rachel already spoke to, what's so important is when you're in it, and even us who I would say are teach this, when we get in it, we're in it. Our brain the blood leaves your frontal cortex and goes into your limbs and you're frozen or you want to fight. The same thing happens. We're all human. But then adding in these practices of, for example, taking a sacred pause, a gratitude pause, where you zoom out and go, I'm so grateful for us. And then going into, these are the 3 things I'm grateful about you right now, which again, in the moment is literally the last thing you want to say. You're like, I hate this about you. I hate this, instead of like, I'm so grateful that you're so amazing and you're present with me. And then learning to, with breath, regulate your nervous system, and then using co-devotional language, and not just speaking the words, but really, Rachel always says this, we're not just talking to the other person, we're also talking to ourselves and to our own body to bring our body back into balance. So for example, to say something like, I take 100% responsibility. And I'm witnessing a part of me right now totally triggered. And I'm curious, does a part of you feel the same way? Now we're adding in curiosity. We're taking away shaming, blaming, guilting. We're now comparing these different wild stories that we've created. And now we get to be on the same team.
Yeah.
Not in opposition. And then we get to be in discovery of like, oh, wow, what led to this? And I wonder where this stems from. And you become like a compassionate scientist.
Totally. Absolutely.
And then we move through the contractions so much quicker because so much deeper.
And because we're like, the language forces you to slow down time.
Yeah.
And so there's this like, and these are techniques that we have taken from all of these, Imago technique, and Kathleen Hendricks and Brown and nonviolent communication and all of these things that we have read and sort of created this beautiful amalgamation. And it's just really allows you to talk about anything. And that's that I think is the secret, is that this languaging, there's nothing that we can't talk about. There's nothing we can't express. There's no emotion that has to be in the dark. And so it gives us an opportunity to really go at it together and help the healing. Because I think that the contraction, I always tend to think about it in this like energetic perspective of, when something is contracting down, it's like a clearing to whatever there is in the subconscious that's not a match to this new level of expansion. And so it's like a healing process. And so when you're using this co-devotional communicating, you are healing together. And it brings in, again, that level of compassion and understanding that we all have this, every single one of us on this planet. And when we can come at it from that perspective, it becomes actually a lot more fun and interesting. It's like even in the midst, I'm thinking about these, really what could be viewed as like catastrophic moments of like, total obliteration of identity and just like, hysterically crying and being like, what the is happening? And that because of these mechanisms, like really integrated into our body, there's that witness perspective that's like, ooh, breakthrough. This is huge. Oh my gosh. And so you're doing it together and it becomes this amazing thing, but it really is a sacred pause, slowing everything down and really hearing each other. Because that's the thing that I think happens constantly is we miscommunicate.
Yeah, and the mirroring back is so important as well, especially and we see this again with our clients a lot because they'll, use the language, but they don't mirror.
Yeah.
And then the other person just doesn't feel heard. And so there's just slowing it way. We always say it's like, if you slow it way down on the front end, the back end is just so easy.
Yeah.
But if you skip the slowing down and the front end just goes on and on, the back end is like this. And then you're in another contraction.
Yeah.
Because you're peeling, layers and ancestral stuff and cultural stuff and yada, yada, yada. There's always more. So when you get good at resolving conflict and you get excited about it because you're good at it. So no longer are you avoiding it, but speaking to it right when it arises with skill and devotion. And it's so life-changing and it leaves so much energy and time to be in play.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I love all of this. And as we wrap up, it seems like there's this thread from the very beginning because I feel like I've witnessed a timeline of both of you relating to each other with more consciousness,
Yeah.
with more co-devotional relationship,
Mhm.
relating, and starting from a secret that Johann, you held on to for 2 years that was eating you up, and Rachel having the intuition like something was unsaid and
Mhm.
unmet. And now speaking to how you can zoom out, slow down,
Mhm.
play,
Mhm.
acknowledge each other, reflect. Oof.
Yeah.
It's almost like your greatest challenges transformed into what you're now teaching and
100%.
supporting other couples through.
Mhm.
So thank you for that work that you're doing.
Thank you
Thank
so much,
you.
brother. Yeah, we truly feel, and to really quickly to say, when we look back, and we look at all the challenges, right? All the contractions, all the explosions, the implosions, all the people, realize that the divine
Yeah.
has cast literally the right people with the right amount of stakes and intensity the whole way through. Because without
Absolutely.
those stakes being so high, we would have never gone through the changes. So for those of you guys that are listening right now, just know that they're happening for you truly.
Mhm.
And then just learn how to get better at resolving those conflicts in such a way that it allows you to expand and expand. And likely you too will be living your dharma, that this is leading you to your dharma, to your purpose, to
Yeah.
your gifts.
Yeah.
That's happening for you. Just know that. And when we can meet that challenge with that in mind, it feels so different,
Yeah.
you know, and we're so grateful for everything that has happened.
Yeah.
And now to be able to share this and to help other people, you know, have these same realizations, it's literally like we're pinching ourselves every day. Like, wow, we get to do this. Like what we love with each other. We love each other so much. And like,
Awesome.
it's amazing. So thank you so much for
Yeah.
having us.
Thank you.
It's been so amazing connecting with you, brother. And
Oh.
I look forward to a lot more.
Likewise. So for those that want to find out more about pyramid breath, the art of co-devotional relation.
Yes.
Told you it's a
TM.
Yes.
How can they find you? Both.
So you could go to pyramid.com
Mhm.
or Pyramid Breath. You can go to co-devotionalloving.com, which I think is coming up in just a moment. Right
Yeah.
now, there's I am Rachel Pringle.
You can find us. You can find everything on our Instagram at Herb Johann and at Positive Pringle, and all the things are there. All the avenues, all the connections, all the websites, all the juice and yumminess is
I
there.
feel like you should also do like
And also all the sexy photos.
Absolutely.
Rachel's got the six. I feel like you should do like a shadow site, like negative Pringle, because you're positive Pringle. You know, where you just
Negative
like
Pringle.
bitch and complain about everything. Dark humor.
Only politics.
Yes, only politics. Oh my
Oh,
God.
Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. This has been so lovely to be in your energy, to see the thread of your relationship from the greatest challenge to this inner knowing and spreading of your love. So thank you for all the work that you do and being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Such
Austin.
a pleasure.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Modern Enlightenment. If you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to check out our website, subscribe to our online community, and check out our social media links in the show notes for more resources and updates.
And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast to stay connected with our upcoming episodes, where we continue to explore the intersection of modern science and spiritual wisdom. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep shining your light.